Hello, holistic hikers. It's been a while since I have done a live video in this group. I've missed connecting with you guys here. Make sure this is going. Awesome. I hope everyone's been having a good start to 2021. I can't believe it's March already. Say hi if you're watching live or if you're catching the replay. We're going to dig into macronutrients for backpackers today. But real quick, we'll just catch up a little bit. If you're wondering where I've been, I didn't just disappear. I've actually been working on focusing just my energy on finishing up a couple big projects for the past couple months, including finishing up the manuscript for the first book that I'm writing, which I'm co-authoring with Heather Anish Anderson. I'm super excited to share that with you guys. Probably not till next year, but I have a lot of content that I'm going to share with you based on the research I did for that. I've also started my role as an online instructor for Andrew Skirka's online courses, and I'm getting ready to guide with him this summer, so that's exciting as well. I've been teaching a backpacking fundamentals group for a group of women who are hiking the Grand Canyon this year. I've been working with my private clients on health coaching, private health coaching, and also published 2 new courses, the safety course and the backcountry navigation course. And those are on my website if you're looking for information about that. So much exciting stuff going on. Pop in the comments below. Let me know how you guys have been doing. Let me know what trips you're planning for this year. I'm going to be back to publishing regular content again. So let me know where you're at, what you're needing support with, and mostly just like how you're doing, what trips you're planning. I'm super curious. So yeah, I had to put a few things on the back burner, but I'm excited to be connecting with you guys regularly again here. If you're new to this group, I'm Katie. I am a holistic health coach, a nutritionist, also a long distance backpacker. It's my absolute passion to just help people who want to live a more adventurous life to have the skills and the confidence to get outside more regularly. Because I really believe that nature heals us mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually on so many levels, and that we really become the fullest expression of ourselves when we're out in nature. So I love to support others in any way that I can in helping them to get outdoors. So that's what this group is all about, because I think that the world really needs more people living their fully expressed selves. So let's dive into macros for backpackers. I'm gonna have a sip of tea. So I get asked about this a lot. I know a lot of backpackers feel confused when it comes to planning their food. A lot of times people are either packing way too much or maybe they're not packing enough. Generally it errs on the side of packing way too much, and while packing a little bit extra can be helpful, packing multiple days extra worth of food is not necessary, because that ends up being a few extra pounds of pack weight on your back. And when you're hiking for 6, 8, 10 hours a day or more, that definitely adds up, and it can wear down your body basically and make you more prone to overuse injuries, and it's just no fun when you're carrying a heavier backpack. So I actually did a video all about, well, we'll get into this in a minute, but all about calculating like how much food to take earlier in this group. So if you're looking for that one, scroll back and find that video. This one's going to be more about macronutrient percentages. So yeah, we're going to clear up some of the misconceptions about how much to pack, as well as what that food should consist of if your primary goals are to lower your pack weight, as well as to just feel better on trail, have more consistent energy, better endurance, faster recovery, and things like that. And I do want to note that in this video, I'm talking specifically about why certain macronutrient ratios make sense for backpackers. This is different than what might make sense in like your day-to-day life. That's a different topic for a different video, and I might, if there's interest, I might do that separately. That's like something I do with my private clients. But this is specifically about what makes sense for backpacking. So in terms of why you might bother calculating macronutrient percentages at all, because it's definitely going to take some effort to do this. But mainly it's going to be if you want to pack a lower pack weight, like have lower food weight, because on like a 5-day trip, your food bag is generally one of the heaviest items in your pack. So in my opinion, I think it makes sense to be kind of intentional about what you're putting in there so that you can lower that food weight while also still making sure you're covering your nutritional bases. So that's one reason. And then the other reason you would want to pay attention to macronutrients is what I was just speaking to, which is for performance reasons. to have more consistent, steady energy, which is something I talk about all the time, especially with blood sugar balance, to have faster recovery from day to day. So this is really helpful if you're on a multi-day backpacking trip. Macronutrient ratios can also have help you have better immune function. This is really helpful when you're on a multi-month trip, especially. I mean, you don't really ever want to get sick, but you really want your immune function optimized on a long trip. And then also just for like better cognitive function and better mood. So when you're eating tons of like junk food and high sugary snacks and things like that, it can really mess with your mood, and because it's messing with your blood sugar levels essentially. So those are the reasons that you might want to bother to pay attention to your macros. And really, at the end of the day, I think if you're asking your body to perform optimally, you want to give it optimal inputs. So that is what this conversation is all about. So as I was just mentioning at the beginning of the video, the first step, in my opinion, when it comes to creating a backcountry meal plan is about figuring out roughly how many calories to pack each day. And the reason for this essentially is to avoid overpacking or shorting yourself on calories, either of which is no fun. So as I mentioned, there is a video, I can't remember when I did it, probably in December in this group, or maybe early January, about how to figure out your calorie needs. But really it's super simple. My recommendation is to use an online calculator, such as one you would find at tdeecalculator.net, or there's another one at, what is the site? It's exrx.net. But there are other ones on there if you just Google BMR calculator, and those will give you a general calorie range, which you can adjust based on your expected activity output, that are going to say you need roughly 2,500 calories per day or 3,000 calories per day or whatever it is. And I find that more useful to use one of those calculators, which is super simple, it's free, it's easy, rather than using a broad range, which you might hear like, pack 2 pounds of food per day, or all hikers should be eating between, 2,000 to 3,000, whatever it is, like if you see online, just a broad range. I don't think those are really helpful because your needs are specific to you. So that is a quick recap of how to figure out how much to eat. And then once you know how much you want to pack in your food bag, what should those foods consist of? And that's really what this conversation is about in terms of macronutrients. So first of all, what are macros? Essentially, macros are the 3 main components that make up all of our food. Then that's protein, fats, and carbohydrates. So I usually start by talking about protein because that's the macronutrient that is going to stay pretty constant, whereas fat and carb are more variable and they're going to depend more on the person. So protein is important, and you're probably familiar with this, for muscle building as well as muscle repair. It's also essential for immune function. It's really important for your blood sugar balance, which you've probably heard me speak about ad nauseum. And it's also important for satiating, like to keep you satiated from meal to meal. Basically, fat and fiber are also really satiating as well. So we need a certain amount of protein each day to prevent muscle wasting and to facilitate muscle repair from day to day. So once we have our protein needs figured out, the remainder of the calories are going to consist of either fat or carbohydrate. Those are our primary sources of cellular energy. And your exact needs for carbohydrate and fat are going to depend on you. But in this video, I'm just going to provide some factors that you might want to consider when planning your macronutrients for your next backpacking trip. So you might be familiar with or have heard that endurance athletes it's usually recommended for endurance athletes to eat a really high carbohydrate diet, or there's this idea of like carb loading, which you might hear, especially like I remember that in high school athletics, like they were always telling us before swim meets, eat bowls of pasta and like eat tons of carbohydrates. But it's a little more nuanced like that, than that. And this advice doesn't always work for long distance hikers. And that's what I'm speaking to today. And the reason for that is because the body's preferred source of energy really depends primarily on the exercise intensity as well as the duration of the exercise. So basically when a person is exercising at really high intensities, like all out efforts, or not even, even a little less than all out. So I'm going to say like 60% or greater efforts, most of the body's fuel is coming from carbohydrates in those instances. On the other hand, when someone is exercising at a lower intensity, so low to moderate intensity activities, most of the body's energy is coming from free fatty acids, so fat. And that would be activities such as walking, and in most cases, backpacking. So if you think about like a day of backpacking, for the average backpacker, they're not going at all out intensities all day long. It's mostly low to moderate intensity for most of the day, with bursts of high intensity output, such as maybe when you're going across really rugged terrain, or you're hiking up a mountain, or just going, doing something really rigorous. Those are like the short little bursts of intensity throughout the day. But for the most part, hiking is a low to moderate intensity activity with bursts of more intense activities. So backpackers have what we would say is like high aerobic needs, low anaerobic needs, and low strength needs. So that's what I mentioned that because that influences what I'm about to say about what I think are ideal macronutrient ratios or preferred macronutrient ratios for backpackers. So what I just shared is one reason why I think that fat is an ideal fuel source for backpacking. Because backpacking is mostly in that low to moderate intensity window, basically, and that's where fat is the body's primary fuel source. And then I also think fat makes sense for backpackers from a pack weight perspective, and that's because fat is 2.4 times more energy dense than either carbs or protein. So I will put that in a different way to hopefully make it more clear. So carbohydrate and protein both have 4 calories per gram. Fat contains 9 calories per gram. So that makes it 2.4 times more calorically dense than carbs or protein. So this means you can carry less food weight overall by carrying a higher fat, like more high fat foods, basically. A high fat diet will weigh less than a high carb diet with the same number of calories. Hopefully that made sense the way I just explained it. If not, and if you have any questions at all, please post them in the comments. I would love to see what's coming up for you, see what questions this generates for people, or just say hi. And I also want to make a really important note is that if you do decide to consume a diet that's higher in fat on trail, it's really important that you're choosing healthy sources of fat. So not trans fats and not really high amounts of saturated fats. And that's a little more nuanced because it depends on your genetics, but you're wanting to choose more of the healthy sources of fat. You want to make sure also that you're consuming adequate protein and a lower ratio of carbohydrate, because generally and this is not usually a problem for backpackers because you're burning so much energy, but generally if fat and carb are both really high, that's going to lead to pretty rapid weight gain. So especially, I would not recommend this in your like day-to-day life, but even on trail, that's where you get into problems if you're like really high fat and really high like starchy, sugary carbs. Instead, you want to have one a little bit higher and one a little bit lower, and they should like change. So if you were to do a high carb diet instead, I would put the ratio of fat lower. And as I mentioned, protein is kind of like stays at a sort of steady number, whatever you decide that percentage to be to maintain muscle mass. And there's recommendations online, and we can talk about it in a different video of like figuring out your specific number, but the protein kind of stays steady, and it's the carb and the fat that get manipulated. Hopefully that makes sense. So here's kind of the foundation of everything. How do you actually put this into action? So to recap, when you're planning your meals, I would figure out your total calorie needs using one of those online calculators that I mentioned, adjusting it for your expected activity level output, and then figure out your protein needs first. In my opinion, anywhere from about like 20 to 25% is probably appropriate for most backpackers. You can choose what feels most appropriate for you. And then the remainder of your calories are going to be split between fat and carbs. I believe that favoring fats makes sense for backpackers because as we talked about, backpacking is generally a low to moderate intensity activity where fats are favored by the body, and then also to lower your pack weight because fats are 2.4 times more calorically dense than either carb or protein. However, I'm not implying that carbs are not important. They definitely are. They're really helpful for those quick bursts of energy, and they're also helpful for helping you sleep better at night and to restore muscle glycogen that you go through, which is like the stored form of carbohydrate in your muscles. The carbohydrate helps you restore muscle glycogen at night so that you do have that glycogen in there for your more intense efforts the following day. It also helps you sleep better because carbohydrates are part of the serotonin melatonin pathway, which helps you sleep better. So hopefully all of that makes sense. If any of it doesn't, if it generates more questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. And I'm intentionally not giving specific recommendations for percentages here because while I am a nutrition coach, I'm not your nutrition coach. So I invite you to use the information that I provided here as a starting point and then adjust based on your own biology and your own body's feedback. So sometimes if you change your macronutrients too quickly, you'll find that your energy is really poor, or you'll notice just like your body's feedback saying like, oh, I don't really like this, or maybe it changed, like your digestion will be off. So it's best if you change things slowly if you've been used to something else for a really long time. So keep in mind that your body always knows what's best for you. So that is my primer for today on backcountry trail nutrition and specifically on macros for backpackers. Please let me know if this was helpful. If you want to see more information about this in the comments below, if you have any follow-up questions, anything like that. If you do want to go deeper on this topic, I have quite a few blog posts on my website, katiegerber.com, as well as I think I have a few sample meal plans. Like I have my, I know I have a CDT 5-day resupply on there. I think I also have a blog post about my Oregon Desert Trail resupply, the foods that I eat, as well as the supplements I eat. Macronutrient ratio breakdowns, things like that. And then you can also find more about nutrition in general in my Adventure Ready online course, which you can also find on my website. And that's all I have for you today. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your time. Please, if this was helpful, let me know in the comments and I'll go ahead and share more about this. And if you want to share it with another backpacker, please do so. Invite them into this group and we would love to have them. So have a great day.